Making a single good, successful movie is difficult enough, but developing a franchise of films that continually go down well with critics and audiences alike is basically a feat of cinematic wizardry. As such, it's not uncommon for movie franchises with all their moving parts and creative voices to make huge creative missteps which threaten to doom them forevermore. What's less common though is franchises which repeat the same damn mistake twice. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie with What Culture here with movie franchises that made the same mistake twice. Not planning the story ahead, Star Wars. When you're building a gigantic, sprawling cinematic universe, it's incredibly important to have a firm handle on the fundamentals and a decent idea of where the story and characters are going for the foreseeable future. This has been Star Wars' problem twice. Once in a way it was ultimately able to weather, and another that has proven considerably more destructive to the brand. When A New Hope was being shot, George Lucas had a lot of free-flowing ideas for future films, but nothing that was set in concrete, a process which continued through production on The Empire Strikes Back. Lucas didn't come up with Darth Vader being Luke Skywalker's father until he was deep into writing Empire, as contradicted Obi-Wan telling Luke that Vader killed his father in A New Hope. Far more embarrassingly, there's the infamous kiss between Luke and Leia in Empire before they're revealed to be siblings in Return of the Jedi. It's all a result of Lucas not having a firmly set plan for the major narrative and character beats, but on the balance of things, he totally got away with it. Less successful was the recent sequel trilogy, which suffered immensely from a lack of creative cohesion throughout. The Force Awakens set a firm, if unadventurous, template, which Rian Johnson boldly shook up in The Last Jedi, the polarizing reception to which prompted Lucasfilm to pivot for the retcon-heavy, pandering nonsense that was The Rise of Skywalker. These films very clearly needed a roadmap, especially with billions of dollars up in the air, and the result is a trilogy of movies which, while hugely commercially successful, lack the cultural and merchandising power of the original three. Shifting the focus away from Michael Myers, Halloween. In one sense, you have to respect the filmmakers behind Halloween for actively trying to transition the slasher franchise away from its feature attraction, twice, despite the obvious financial appeal of keeping him front and center, even if neither attempt really worked. Halloween 3: Season of the Witch saw John Carpenter try to reinvent Halloween as an anthology franchise without Michael Myers, focusing instead on evildoers plotting to kill America's children with tainted Halloween masks. It's not a bad movie by any means, but simply isn't what people wanted from the Halloween franchise, resulting in it underperforming critically and commercially and putting the series on ice for 6 years. The series had its ups and many downs over the decades, but kept Michael the mainstay, even when original heroine Laurie Strode was nowhere to be seen. But in Halloween Ends, the closing chapter in David Gordon Green's polarizing new Halloween trilogy, Green went back to the idea of a Halloween movie without much Michael Myers at all. Michael is absent from the entire first act and only has around 10 minutes of screen time throughout the nearly 2-hour movie, with the focus being instead given to an entirely new character, Corey Cunningham. Unsurprisingly, the choice didn't go down well with many fans, especially as the true finale to the original Michael Laurie era, resulting in the lowest box office gross of the Green-directed trilogy. Going PG-13, Robocop. Paul Verhoeven's original Robocop is a gloriously entertaining festival of gratuitous violence and social satire, and while its immediate sequel lacks the same punchy charm, it still delivers enough R-rated thrills to feel worthy enough. Robocop 3, however, committed the dual sin of replacing Peter Weller with Robert Burke in the lead role and dropping the content rating from R to PG-13. The result was a neutered threequel, which was terribly written with or without violence, but pissed off its grown-up fans by so cynically sanitizing a winning formula. Fans perhaps got the last laugh though, as it was a box office disappointment regardless of opening business to kids. The movie franchise, of course, lay dormant for over 20 years after this, and when Robocop was finally resurrected for a big-budget, star-studded remake, the first question from most fans concerned its MPAA rating. Everyone involved with the production dragged their feet, confirming the truth that 2014's new Robocop was also rated PG-13. And to the surprise of no one, it was similarly raked over the coals for feeling defanged due to the lack of graphic violence. Between this and its excessive $130 million budget, Robocop 2014 predictably tanked at the box office. Spoiling the twist in the trailers, Terminator. The Terminator franchise has been in the shadow of James Cameron's masterful first two films for over 30 years, but made one especially glaring mistake 2 movies in a row, spoiling way too much in the marketing. The fourth film, Terminator Salvation, freely spoiled the mid-film twist that Marcus Wright is a human-machine hybrid, and sequel Terminator Genesis similarly gave away that John Connor was now a Terminator antagonist. Watching these movies without this knowledge would have made for a profoundly different and more interesting experience, and while the movies themselves are bad either way, it robbed viewers of discovering bold twists on the series' formula for themselves. Too many villains, Spider-Man. This is technically a bit of a cheat because we're talking about different iterations of Spider-Man, but there's also no denying that the web-slinger is a pop culture enterprise in his own right. Sam Raimi's original trilogy of Spider-Man movies sputtered to an unceremonious climax with the woefully underwhelming Spider-Man 3, which among its other crimes overstocked its rogues gallery with at least one villain too many. Sandman, New Goblin, and Venom were just too much for one movie, especially as each character had a hefty emotional backstory to work through, and Venom was included in the film against Raimi's wishes. Mark Webb's rebooted Spider-Man series came unstuck the exact same way, albeit one movie earlier in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, where Spidey had to deal with Electro, Green Goblin, and Rhino. Even with Rhino's role being a mere bookending cameo, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 still felt like it was juggling too many antagonists, and in addition to receiving mixed reviews, was enough of a box office disappointment to kill a planned third film. Killing off popular heroes, Alien. If you're lucky enough to introduce audiences to a character who they quickly grow to like or even love, it's extremely ill-advised to kill them off without good dramatic reason. Case in point, we have Alien 3 and its boneheaded choice to wipe out Alien's fan favourite Newt and Hicks in the opening scene. Though Ripley's death at the end of Alien 3 pissed some fans off, it at least made sense contextually and felt somewhat earned at the conclusion of a 3-movie arc. Ridley Scott's Alien prequel Prometheus then introduced audiences to scientist Elizabeth Shaw, a likeable, tough and resourceful heroine who felt like a solid successor to Ripley. When the film ended, fans were eager to see her continued journey to the engineer homeworld in the sequel, but by the time Alien Covenant was released, Scott inexplicably decided to kill Shaw off-screen at the hands of duplicitous android David. Not ending the franchise when it makes sense, Toy Story. The first 3 Toy Story movies are as close to unimpeachable as cinema gets, with Toy Story 3 delivering a tremendously affecting, note-perfect conclusion to Woody and Buzz's adventures. But almost a decade later, in 2019, the franchise was dusted off for Toy Story 4, the announcement of which rubbed many fans the wrong way. It was tough to picture a more unnecessary sequel, considering how brilliantly tied off things felt after Toy Story 3. Yet, while the fourth film didn't reach the incredible heights of its predecessors, it was still a solid movie that served as an affecting epilogue to the original trilogy. And once again, that seemed to be that. But Disney confirmed that Toy Story 5 was in active development. It's tough not to see the announcement as a cynical brand-bolstering exercise rather than a creative necessity because someone has a story they absolutely need to tell. Ditching Frank Grillo, The Purge. Though the Purge franchise got off to a shaky start, it found its firm footing in the second and third movies, where Frank Grillo was installed as the gruffy, badass, Punisher-esque hero Leo Barnes. While threequel, The Purge election year, seemed to be setting up a fourth movie where Leo would get caught in the middle of a new American Civil War, the filmmakers decided to instead follow up with a prequel, The First Purge, outlining the origins of Purge Night. As such, Grillo was nowhere to be seen, yet fans nevertheless assumed that his Leo would return for the fifth once the franchise returned to the modern timeline. But no dice, making the villain too likeable, Creed. The Rocky franchise has always been known for offering up colourful and often charming villains, though for the most part the filmmakers have understood that the antagonist can't ever be more likeable than the underdog hero. However, the latter 2 entries into the Creed franchise unfortunately tipped the balance a little too far in favour of their sympathetic bad guys, enough that many actually ended up rooting for them over Adonis Creed himself. In Creed 2, Victor Drago is a savage athlete forced to reside in his father Ivan's shadow, while hoping that by defeating Donnie he can earn the respect of his father, his country, and his absentee mother. Victor Drago is basically a classic Rocky underdog, but the movie ultimately wants you to still buy bigger into Creed's quest for victory, and doesn't quite land it because the stakes are so much lower for Donnie. And Creed 3 made the same fascinating misstep because while Donnie's troubled childhood friend Dame Anderson is far more of a conniving schemer than Victor, he's still an immensely sympathetic character. Dame understandably feels abandoned by Donnie, who as a teenager fled the violent crime scene which led to Dame being jailed and then failed to make contact with him for 18 years while he was in prison. Dame's anger is all too easy to appreciate that he wants a slice of the success his nepo baby childhood friend achieved while he was rotting in a cell. Introducing random secret apprentices? Saw. The first time the Saw franchise revealed a secret apprentice for John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, with Saw 2's Amanda being appointed as his successor, it was a neat and genuinely surprising twist. But in the interest of keeping the franchise limping along, it is one which the filmmakers relied upon all too much in the sequels that followed. Saw 4 revealed the convoluted presence of Detective Hoffman as Jigsaw's successor before the 8th movie, Jigsaw, revealed a super-secret third major apprentice, Logan Nelson, who predates all the others and spent years inactive before taking up Jigsaw's mantle in the present. At least you can say that Hoffman was eventually developed into a vicious, nasty villain who fans couldn't wait to see die, but Logan was a total damp squib of a secret accomplice who reflected the series' aching desperation to remain tethered to John Kramer.